Hi everyone, this is Ariel from Sphinx Automation, and today I'm going to be giving you an overview of Wealthbox objects. What I mean by objects is a different grouping of data or information, and there are four main kinds of objects that I'll be covering: tasks, workflows, projects, and opportunities. A task is just what it sounds like. It's a one-time action that needs to be performed, and this is best for one-off situations. For example, if I need to get a document signed, that might be a task because it's a single event and a single action. In order to add a task in Wealthbox, you can go over to the Tasks tab on the left, hit Add Task, enter the task name, indicate whether it repeats, and if it does, indicate the frequency of repetition, the start date, and the end date. Indicate who should be assigned to the task, which category it falls under, if any, what priority the task is, add a description, and relate it to a contact, project, or opportunity. We'll talk in a moment about projects and opportunities. Finally, you can indicate whether you should notify everyone if you have multiple advisors under your firm, or just you. Once you're finished, hit Add Task. You'll see that the task appears in your task list. If I go over to my dashboard, I'll see it in my dashboard on the right-hand side. And if I go over to the contact which the task is related to, the project, or the opportunity, I'll also see the task listed under those items as well. At a later date, if I need to make updates to the task or add comments to indicate the status, I can use the comment box to write a reply and say, sent document for signature, for example. Once I hit reply, the reply will be posted to the task and I can access that later for informational purposes. In order to edit the task, I can hit the drop down next to actions and hit edit. If I want to duplicate a task, I can hit duplicate. If I want to print, I can hit print. And if I want to delete the task, I can hit delete. From the tasks page, I can filter my tasks by upcoming or completed. I can show tasks, workflow steps, or both tasks and workflow steps, and we'll cover workflows in just a moment. I can filter by which advisor the task or workflow is assigned to, and I can filter by category. I can also print a list of all of my tasks and/or workflows by hitting Actions and then hitting Print. The second type of object is a workflow. A workflow is a series of tasks that will most likely be performed multiple times, i.e. a process. Going back to my previous scenario where I needed to have a document signed, maybe I need to not only sign the document myself, but I also need to send the document to the client for signature. And once it's signed, I need to scan it, upload it, and add it to my documentation storage system. Those series of tasks would be a workflow. To create a workflow, I would head to the Workflows tab on the left-hand side. I would hit Manage Templates and hit Add Template. I can name my workflow, indicate whether it will be sequential or not, meaning that the steps go in a specific order or don't. Having it in sequential order is best when there's a particular step-by-step process. One step needs to be completed before the next step can be done. Whereas having it not in sequential order is best when the tasks can be completed in any order. Then I can indicate whether this is a workflow for a contact, an opportunity, or a project. Again, we'll cover opportunities and projects in just a moment, but there may be scenarios where you want to duplicate the same workflow and have it apply for a contact, an opportunity, and a project. Next, I can enter a description of the workflow, and then I can add my steps. Starting with 1, name the step, set the due date, X amount of days, weekdays rather, weeks or months later, and if I want to indicate a time I can. I can pre-assign a specific step to the contact owner, to a specific advisor, or to whoever starts the workflow. I can indicate a priority of the steps, add a description of the steps, and if I need to, I can even attach a file to complete that step. Once I'm done, I can hit Save Step, and then I can continue adding additional steps. If you are on the upgraded version of Wealthbox, you will see an additional button here, which is your Outcomes button. It sort of looks like two converging arrows. The Outcomes button allows you to set different endpoints for each specific task. For example, if I have a step in my workflow to have a meeting with a potential client and they may or may not be qualified, I might have an outcome if they're qualified and are ready to move ahead, a second outcome if they're qualified but aren't quite ready to move ahead yet, and a third outcome to say that they're not qualified. That way, when I run the workflow and complete that step, I can indicate which outcome applies, and as a result of selecting the outcome, can either complete said workflow, run another workflow, or perform some other kind of action. When you're done adding all of your steps, then you can hit Save Template, and you'll see your published templates in the list below. When you're ready to run a workflow, you can go over to the Contacts tab, the Opportunities tab, or the Projects tab, and you can apply a created workflow to any one of those other objects. The third object that I'll cover is projects. Projects allow you to group events, tasks, workflows, and notes to track a project's life cycle. To create a project in Wealthbox, you will click on the Projects tab in the left menu, hit Add Project, name the project, add a project description, enter an organizer, and choose whether to notify everyone or just you. As you can see, once the project is created, if you have workflows that are applicable to the project object, you may add a workflow to the project. I only have one right now, and as I referenced earlier, you may have certain workflows that could apply to contacts, to projects, and/or to opportunities. So you may want to take each workflow and create a duplicate version of it to apply to each different object. Once I have applied the workflow, I can proceed as I would with any other workflow by using the Actions button to either complete the step and notify, or just simply complete the step. I can also, just like I saw with the Tasks field, add a comment or a reply to the workflow step or steps, and hit Reply to add the comment to the step. That way, if I ever need to come back later and check on the status or what was done, I can just look at my replies and see history on that workflow or task. When I'm finished with the workflow, I can either complete all the steps, or I can complete the workflow and notify, or I can just simply complete the workflow. If the workflow no longer applies, I can simply delete it. And if I want to customize the workflow, I can customize this workflow just for this particular project by hitting the Customize button from the Actions dropdown and adding another step that will apply only for this particular workflow. In addition to running workflows, I can also associate activities, meaning events, that come from my Google Calendar or I create in Wealthbox to a particular project. Assuming that this project is a client's financial planning engagement, I might again associate each meeting I have with them on a particular topic to this project. I might run a workflow for each topic that we'll cover. That way I have a step-by-step guide to make sure I don't miss any pertinent steps. And I can relate this project to the client's particular contact record. That way, when I search for their contact record, I can see their project associated to it as well. If I need to add one-off tasks or events to the project rather, I can click on the task button to add a task, or click on the event button to add a one-off event. If I want to just add general notes, I can use the Notes tab to add a note. Finally, the fourth object in Wealthbox is the Opportunity object. Opportunities allow you to visually track the flow of a contact's life, but this object is mostly created to focus on the sales portion of the client lifecycle. Projects and opportunities are very similar in that both allow you to group workflows, events, tasks, and notes on the same card, if you will. But opportunities allow you to see additional metrics, and you have the ability to flip between different pipelines as well as different layouts. I'll show you what that looks like in just a moment. To access opportunities in Wealthbox, you'll come over to the Opportunities tab in the left menu. Once you're in the Opportunities tab, you can see your pipeline or your primary pipeline. If you have multiple pipelines, you can use this drop-down to pick which pipeline you'd like to view. One suggestion is if you have different types of services, for example, maybe you do assets under management, as well as holistic financial planning, as well as hourly engagements. You might have a different sales process for each of those different products. And each of those processes might entail having a different pipeline. If you want to add additional pipelines, you can, from this same dropdown, hit Manage Pipelines, and you can add an additional pipeline. Since we're on the basic plan, we don't have the opportunity to do additional opportunities, no pun intended. If I wanted to customize my existing pipeline, I would hit the Customize button, and that will allow me to create or edit the different pipeline stages. By default, there's always a stage for Lost and Won. The other opportunity stages, though, are customizable. If I want to change the name, I can hit Edit, and I can change the name and then hit Save for a given phase. Or if I want to add a stage or a phase, I can hit Create Stage, and I can add an additional step in that pipeline. In the pipeline, each opportunity has its own card, and the different columns indicate different phases of that client lifecycle process. Once I have them schedule an introductory call, I would then move the card into warm leads. At this stage of the pipeline, I would probably add a workflow to this particular opportunity. And I would do that by clicking on the card, clicking on the name of the opportunity, and just like we saw in the Projects tab, I can use this Start New Workflow dropdown to add a workflow. As I mentioned earlier, I have a copy of the same prospect workflow, one that's applicable to opportunities and one that is applicable to projects. And in the previous object that we looked at, which was the projects, I applied the one that was applicable for projects. Here I'm applying the copy that's applicable for opportunities. Once I'm ready, I can hit Start Workflow, and I can, again, go through the different actions just as I would in the project or in the context workflow copy. We have the same opportunity to add one-off tasks as well as events right from the opportunities card. We have detailed information about the particular opportunity, but unlike the projects card, there's a lot more information here. We can see not only which contact the opportunity is related to in the Projects tab that's listed on the right over here, but we can also see the amount of gain that we'll achieve if we close this opportunity, the target close date, which pipeline it's in, which stage it's in, the probability of closing, who it's assigned to, what's our next step in our process, and who it was created by and when it was last modified. At any point, I can pick from the Actions dropdown to edit, print, duplicate, or delete the opportunity. Going back to my pipeline view, I might then move this card into the prospect phase. And at this phase, at least in my pipeline, I've already had the introductory call. And maybe they're ready to have a second follow-up meeting, or maybe they're ready to give some information but aren't quite ready to commit. That's okay. We'll move them into this prospect category, which is just one step closer to actually being closed. If at any point they tell me I'm ready to sign on, I'm good to go, or maybe the opposite, they say I'm not ready to sign on and I don't think we're a good fit, I can take this card and I can drag it towards the bottom and I can put it under lost, or I can put it under one. In addition to this pipeline view, as I mentioned earlier, there are also two other different views that we have for the Opportunities tab. We can hit the list view, and that will show all the opportunities in a list format. Because I took my single opportunity and put it under one, we see nothing here. But I can filter by status and/or stage. I can filter by time estimated for the closing on the opportunity, and I can filter by the user. In addition to those two views, the pipeline view and the list view, we also have a third view, which is the graph view. And in the graph view, we can see the number of opportunities by each stage and how many were lost versus won. And if I click each of those graphical bar lines, I can see a detailed view of each of those stages, how many opportunities are under each stage and the list of which they are. At any point, I can use the Actions menu to print a list of all of those opportunities that are in each stage. Hopefully this gave you a good overview of the different objects that are available to you in Wealthbox and the difference between each of them. If you have any questions, send us an email at info@sphinxautomation.com. And don't forget to follow us on our Facebook group, Sphinx Automation, like our page, and subscribe to our channel.